Oh, man. It's happening. The very first, number one, inaugural Writing Theory live stream. Thank you for joining. Let me know if you can see this in the chat. This is the first time, so there's lots of ways to make mistakes. And that's bound to happen. So bear with me. I want to talk a little bit about the game plan here. And also figure out what kind of delay we're working with. And see when people are like, pow! Pow! Mind blown at the chat. Oh, hey, look. You know, I actually didn't know if I was going to be able to get the YouTube chat on the video. So that's kind of cool. We can see the pyramid and the dock. And also me. Thank you, Rye. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. All right. So here's the thing. This is not like a fully structured college lecture. It's not like me just talking to you. This is back and forth. This is me and you. I have some things here on a little notepad for some topics to hit as we talk. But whatever you say in the chat is also really going to influence what we end up talking about. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. By the way, if you're joining here and you're not from the Discord, there is a link below in the description here. You should come hang out. You should come have fun. Most of the people that we have here, we got Pilot Alex, we got Rye, I see Arthur. Wow, Arthur with the big with the emoticon. All right. Most of us are in the Discord already. If you don't know, that's a place where you can go and talk about story. It's where you can come hang out. We talk about movies, talk about TV, talk about books that we've read. And then it's also a place that you can share feedback on or share your writing and get some feedback on, which has turned out to be like incredibly valuable for a lot of people. And that's pretty awesome. So check that out. That'd be great. There's a link below if you need to use it. So let me talk a little bit about what the point of doing the YouTube live stream is. If you have been with us for a little while, we've done a live stream before on the Discord, and the Discord was a lot of fun. It was when we announced the Writing Theory Writing Challenge results. And it was awesome. We had 20, 30 people all sign in, see where they ranked, the top 10 results and everything. So why am I not just doing another live stream over there on Discord? Well, the goal is that maybe there's some things that we talk about here in our live stream, going back and forth, me and you, that answer a lot of really good questions that people would want to see at a later time. And when you do a live stream on YouTube, then you can sort of clip it and take those good bits and bring them over to videos that people can go back to and see. Gabby, welcome to the party. Thanks for joining us. So I jotted down some things in our notepad here. We'll be sort of swapping between different kind of things. I'm new to using OBS and all this stuff, so this is me sort of playing around. Whether we're talking here and we have our notepad and we have our screen share, whether or not we're just chatting, just me and you, just chit-chatting. And then when chat inevitably says something unhinged, what are you doing? And then we're back. So hopefully it's fun. In the future, I'd like to get some like background music. That'd be pretty sick. But all of that is just, improvements to make. Arthur says, do you know who Tyler Mowry is? Tyler Mowry. I knew an Amy Mowry back when I lived in Atlanta. I can't remember if her husband was named Tyler or not. Let me know. I know some Mowrys. I know some Mowrys for sure. Shout out Kennesaw State University. Back in Atlanta, Georgia. Man, something about live streaming makes me want to go off on rants, right? I'm just thinking about college now, and I'm like, oh man, I could go in. I won't do it. We'll do it later. Okay. So what's the plan today? I was on our Discord. Again, link below if you're not already in the Discord. I was on the Discord, and we had one of our users, Blazako. Blazako. It kind of sounds like, I don't know, some kind of explosion. Blazow. And they asked a really great question about story structure. And in trying to interpret that, it kind of led to, I think, a bigger issue that I wanted to talk about on stream today. And maybe we'll move this up here, bring our notes in here. I want to talk about the plot term iceberg. Let's put this bad boy up here at the top. Blazow. The plot term iceberg. All right. So here's the issue. And let me know if you felt this way. So I got this book I want to get. Okay. We got some questions here. We'll look at it in just a second. Let me know if you've ever felt this way. Let me know in chat. When you're trying to figure out, okay, you know, instead of just writing and just trying to go off and start some story, you're going to do some planning. You're trying to organize your story. You're trying to organize your plot. And you start seeing terms that don't pop up anywhere else. Like here's the plot turn, or the plot clinch one, or the crisis, and the I'm trying to think of any other ones that we have here. See if anything pops up. Well, let me know if you have Blazako's my own. I think Blazako sounds kind of cool. If you have encountered this issue, I do not think you are alone. So I've done a couple videos on plot frameworks, and I've done a couple videos on specific ones as well as overviews of different kinds of things. And what I found is that every plot framework is trying to reinvent the wheel, right? You know, we all started out, I won't say all. I started out learning about Freytag's Pyramid. Here, I guess it's over on this side of my screen. Freytag's Pyramid, which is sort of like the reductionist view of a plot framework. This is like if you boiled everything down to its base components, what is a story? It's our introduction, our inciting action or inciting incident. It's our rising action, climax, final action, resolution. And what I've found in looking at all these other frameworks, and what's led to a lot of confusion, is that every other plot framework comes in and says, okay, here's these like 5 or 6 components. How many do we got? Yeah, our 6 components. How can I break that into 13 different steps? And that leads us to things like the 3-act story structure, the 4-act story structure, Dan Harmon's story circle, which has 8 parts. And we have all these little things that are taking the basic formula here, and trying to switch it up a little bit. If you have had that same sort of frustration of like, okay, I really relate to this specific plot framework, but what the heck is a plot turn 1, and how come I can't find a reference to it anywhere else? Let's talk about why, and then I think let's try to nail down what are the need to know terms, and then what are all the things sort of beneath the tip of the iceberg that may be helpful in certain plot frameworks, but maybe are a little confusing because you may only encounter them one time. Because the thing is, the secret to writing could be out there in that other plot framework that just makes sense to you. But if you can't figure out what it all means, then what's the point, you know? Let me know in chat if you felt this way before. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. I don't know. That's some people say. About, you know, I've been confused in trying to go to these other plot frameworks and then not really understanding what I'm seeing. So I pulled up a couple of these that we can talk about. So I think when it comes to the plot term iceberg, everything above the water is kind of what you see in Freytag's Pyramid. That idea of that reductionist kind of like, here is the specific elements of a story. The specific elements that make up a story. But then, how do we get from Freytag's Pyramid and understanding the introduction and inciting action and rising action, climax, final action, resolution? How do we go from understanding that to understanding something that has 25 different steps? right? Save the Cat famously has so many different steps here. I don't know how to present a good depiction of an iceberg. So use your imagination while we talk about this, and I jot some notes down. Here's what we're going to do. The top level. So Freytag's Pyramid, you look at this. This doesn't really help you tell a story. This isn't like Save the Cat. This isn't like The Hero's Journey. This isn't like a 3-act structure. Anything like that. It is almost like the meta beats, if that makes sense. Save the Cat made me want to crawl inside myself and toss my computer into the ocean. It is a lot. It is a lot because it has all these different little sections, and then they also overlap each other, right? It's not sequential. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's what you need to do. It's here's plot beats 1, 2, 3, and they need to exist within big old section 1. All right, we'll talk about that in a bit. Merry salutations. How are you this fine afternoon? I'm doing great. Ivory Tempest, Candle of Stories. So regal. I'm just Carson. That's just me. I'm just Carson. I guess I'm Carson Long, champion of writing theory. I'll take that one. Okay, so let's identify what the core components here are. And also, I missed this message from Thyori Mori. Got this book I want to get off, half done on Wattpad. Should I keep a PDF copy of it to have ownership, or just thug it out on Wattpad and have it be done? It's a good question. So if you're talking about a PDF copy to have ownership of it, that kind of brings to mind that maybe you're worried about something like copyright. As soon as you write something and put it in a place where it is either dated, like if you have a copy saved on your computer, or put it in a place where it's publicly viewable, that establishes your copyright. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just my own understanding of it. So if the idea of like print it off on PDF and have ownership of it is like a copyright thing, I wouldn't worry about that. Should you just thug it out on Wattpad and have it be done? My philosophy with that is like, you've probably learned so much in writing this first story on Wattpad that your next story is going to be infinitely times better because of all the lessons you've learned right in the first one. I'm a proponent, and I'm scared to say this in my recorded videos, but I'll say it on the live stream, even though this will be recorded. I am a firm believer that once you get a project to like 80% done, you get diminishing returns on the time that you spend writing that thing. Like if you're trying to keep fine-tuning it, rewriting different chapters to have slightly different... Like if you're a perfectionist, I totally get it. You want to stick it out. At some point, you got to put that story out. I believe once you get to that 80-85%, you're getting diminishing returns. Send it out. Go on to the next project. Make that project even better. So that's my opinion to you, is like, put it out there, move on. Me in court fighting Disney. Isn't Mickey Mouse in the public domain now? Can we not all write Mickey Mouse stories? I don't know who all, if it extends beyond that. Like, is Goofy? Like, is someone going to be writing a grim, dark, Goofy fantasy? New genre just landed. Goofy fantasy. I can only imagine the chat's blowing up in laughter. I'm on such a delay. I think I'm down here streaming like in my basement. This is like my filming room for the videos, obviously. I don't think my internet's very good, so I have no idea what the delay is like out in the world. Winnie the Pooh is in... They made a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. Right? Isn't that with the guy from Stranger Things? This happened, right? This isn't just a fever dream, right? Oh no. New Nightmare just dropped. Blood and Honey. Has anyone seen this movie? Is this out yet? I think it came out like earlier this year or last year. Yeah. Rise says Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. What the flip, bro? And a sequel. You see, here's what happened. Five Nights at Freddy's unlocked a new kind of horror that means you could bring like those kids IPs to the horror scene. Five Nights at Freddy walked so Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey could run. Yeah, I bet it sucks. It doesn't. This does not instill confidence in me. You know what I mean? Okay. All right, more on that later. Someone said that Thiori says, "Nah, I agree. I find that most writers tell me to love a story. It's better in hindsight than repeated director's cuts because the original cut was perfect without the fluff." Oh, that hits. Okay, so here's the thing. I have a video coming out this Friday on how I edited my upcoming novel. Hold on. Oh, you know your boy's doing the self-plug. And you know what? The scene change, unintentionally, is setting up the great product placement. All right, so I have a video coming out on Friday about the editing process for that book. And this idea of like director's cuts and like continually messing with a book can like maybe make it worse. Boy, that was in my head as I was editing. I started like super doubting myself. More on that on this video in on Friday. But like I wrote my proto draft and I felt so good about it. I knew there were things I needed to improve. I felt so good about it. And then I was like, when I write personally, when I naturally write, it's like very direct. It's very like, I'm a technical writer by trade before I started to pursue this writing theory thing. And the whole idea there is like very direct writing. And so I got in my head that like this book has like a kind of a whimsical vibe to it. So like I need that story to feel a little bit more like a cozy fantasy. So I rewrote the whole thing. And I was like halfway through this rewrite and I started questioning myself. And I'm sure, yeah, Rise on rewrite 12,000. I was on rewrite 1, but I was already in my head like, was this a mistake? Did I just make a big old mess up here? Because like when I wrote my proto draft, it was like, I had like the spark, you know? I had like all that passion, the spark, the creativity. When I did this rewrite, I just had like my old draft on one side of the screen and my new draft on this other side. And I was kind of using the old draft as just like helping me get things in order, reimagining the scene, putting the words down, and trying to make it feel a little bit more descriptive, a little bit more alive. But man, the spark wasn't there. And I spent the whole 50,000 words being like, oh, I am too far in to stop. And I have to keep going. But did I mess up? So that was what was going on in my head for about 2 months. So yeah. What do we got here? We would have ended with the dogs finding the demon. Okay. And how they go into a space and fight different. Jeez. Oh, Dragon Ball. Dude, my experience of Dragon Ball stops at Dragon Ball Z. Look, if you're about to tell me Dragon Ball GT or Dragon Ball, what's the new one called? New God, Power God, Dragon Ball, whatever the new one is, get out of here. Dragon Ball Z was where it was at. You know it's rough when one story has two side stories just to add stuff you literally thought, why didn't I add that sooner? Yeah, there's a lot of real stuff in this chat. A lot of real stuff really hits hard. Let's talk about these stories, though. Let's talk about what goes into a story, because top level, every story here is going to have a few things. GT's ass. What was the newest one? Super. Dragon Ball Super. That's the delay, by the way. If you saw this message and then I responded to it like 40 seconds later. See, here's the issue. Dragon Ball Z was my formative years. So I watched Dragon Ball Z. Then Dragon Ball GT came out and I wasn't into it. Which means when Dragon Ball Super came out, I was already out of the Dragon Ball mindset, you know? So that's why it lost me. All right, so Freytag's Pyramid. Let's talk about it. I'm a plotter, but I hate being a plotter because the characters don't want to work with me on the story I plotted. They screw me over. Maybe you're not a plotter. If your characters are acting off script, I don't know. I don't know. Think about it, Kira. Think about it. Of course, no one's 100% plotter, 100% pantser. We're all somewhere in the middle, but think about it. All right, exposition, also called introduction, also called establishing shot, establishment. Every story starts somewhere. This one's easy to wrap your head around. Every story has your beginning. Now, all that's easy when it comes to these plot frameworks. Inciting action starts to make a change. Because what is an inciting incident? Your inciting incident is the point of no return where things happen and now characters have some place to be and something to do. Or somewhere, something to run from. My characters go off script all the time. I'm seriously considering dropping planning at this point. Try it. Hey, next writing theory challenge, try writing without the plot. Oh, we have a visitor over here. Come here. Come here, Moosey. You want to hop up? Come here. We have a visitor, a foot warmer. I don't know if you can see. Moosey, come here. You want to say hi? Hey. Can you see him up there? Hold on. We got some visitors in here. Let's see what we can do. Hey, you see him? Come here. You want to hop up? You want to hop up? There's Moose. Moose, say hi to everyone. Bailey, come here. These are the two dogs. These are the two. Oh my God. You can only see one. We got Moose here. Exposed. Goose is a character in this book. Moose is the character in my life. And we got Bailey. Hey, Bailey, come here. We got Bailey. Oh, hey, what's up here? What's up here? What's up here? Moose, do you want to say something? There he goes. He sees himself in the preview. Hey, right up there. You see? You see right there? Is there anything you want to say to the people? That's a good point. How do you feel about Dragon Ball Z? Me too, brother. Hey, talk to me about it. Talk to me. All right, get out of here. All right, we got a new foot warmer. New foot warmer just dropped. All right. I would die for Moose and Bailey. Welcome to the club. All right. We say characters go off script. I'm ironically learning or unironically learning. I hope you're unironically learning. So much it makes me realize I'm on the tip of the iceberg. English was never in this depth. 130,000 words in your first draft, 142,000. All right, we got to talk about that. Before it disappears in the chat. Someone says 130,000 words in my first draft, 142,000 words in my second draft. Here's the thing. Every writing advice that I've seen says when you're doing your second draft to cut like 10% of your story. You know what? Good in theory. Here's the deal though. Not everyone overwrites. I'm an underwriter, or not professionally, but I don't write enough, and in my second draft, I add more content, right? To fill things out, to plant these little threads. Stephen King, bless his heart, talks about cutting 10% of your novel from the first to second draft to streamline it. I can't do that. And I won't do that. I can't and I won't. Unite. Underwriters unite. Not like a union, but like in spirit. I'm not sure how to take the character's lead and not the plot. Okay. Would die for Moose and Bailey. Heck yeah. Trying hard not to start a cats versus dogs war. Wise words from a wise person. Kills me. Moose facing Goose like he's... You guys are pretty funny. Oh, man. All right. Okay, hold on. Let's reel it back. Definitely was on a rant here for the editing. All right, exposition, establishing shot, inciting incident, your point of no return, something happens, and you can't just, like, pretend it didn't happen, right? In fantasy, like, the fantasy trope for your inciting incident is going to be like the Wheel of Time, like, bandits attacked my village, can't go back home, gotta go on this quest, right? Lord of the Rings is going to be like, I have this ring, and now this big wizard dude's telling me I gotta go dump this ring in a mountain. What else can I do? Otherwise, everyone's gonna die. Inciting incident, right? What would be another good example? You get it, right? Something kicks off the rest of the events of the story. Top level iceberg stuff. Every plot framework is gonna have a reference to your inciting incident, and most of them are gonna call it inciting incidents. We need some dividers here, CSV style. That's not even funny. All right, rising action. Here is my issue with most plot frameworks. And maybe you feel this, maybe not. Here's the issue with most plot frameworks. Hold on, let me close this door. Most plot frameworks will have something akin to rising action, but the deal is, the issue... Hold on. This is a zoom in moment. What makes most plot frameworks fail for me is this point right here. Rising action is like 65% of your entire story. So if your plot framework just says rising action or like act 2, you lost me. So that's my biggest gripe with a lot of plot frameworks. Rising action is the bulk of most of your story because it's everything from the inciting incident. You can see it here, Frey Die Experiment, inciting incident to the tip of the point, the climax. Ooh, great question here. I know I'm on a delay, but I'm getting to. I promise I'm trying. Someone says, "How do I make my inciting incident matter?" Number one thing you can do, because that was from Kiera. Kiera, number one thing you can do. Make it something irreversible. Sean Coyne in the Story Grid talks about this a lot. He says that every act and every, the inciting incident of your story, the inciting incident, he even says, of every single act in your story has to be something that is irreversible. There's got to be a reason why your character can't just turn and walk away. So, like, let me give you a good example of an inciting incident and a bad example. And I'll tell you why I think they're both like this. All right. How do you make your inciting incident matter? Here is a bad inciting incident. And I'm about to call out an author. I'm about to do it. Build up and... Okay. John Green's story, Paper Towns. John Green's story, Paper Towns. And I haven't read all the John Green books. Haven't read them all. I've read Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns. I feel like there's one more, but I'm not 100% sure. So, the inciting incident, as far as I can remember, which I read this book 14 years ago maybe, is that this dude has a neighbor girl, and she's cool, and he kind of likes her, and she, like, doesn't treat him like he's an unpopular kid, even though he's, like, not popular. Shamelessly roast John Green. Look, I love the Green brothers. I love the Vlog brothers. I love both John and Hank. I can say that. I feel like I can criticize this one point. All right, what's the inciting incident of Paper Towns? If you look up the synopsis on Wikipedia, if you choose to read the book, I'm not really going to spoil anything. The whole idea of this book is that this neighbor girl which also Paper Towns has the #1 cringiest thing I've ever read. I'll get to that later. The inciting incident there is like this neighbor girl runs away. And our main character is like, I want to find her. I want to go find her. And you know what? She left me a clue. She wants me to go find her. And you know what? I enjoy most of John Green's writing. He's got a great way with words. Love his prose. As an inciting incident, that one's not so great. There was never a point where our main character actually needed to go do that, and there was no reason why he couldn't not go do it. If I'm remembering it right, feel free to roast me. Feel free to roast me in the chat if I'm misremembering Paper Towns. Someone will post it. But that was an inciting incident to a story that had what was very little stakes, you know? Our main character at any point could stop looking for Neighbor Girl, and life would go on. But in a teen novel, things are a little different. There's always that element of like cool romanticism of that era of life. Totally get it. That's why the book's so popular. There are really cool elements to that story. By the way, the cringiest thing I read, like I said, from that was when what does she do? The main character writes a note on a salmon, a hunk of fish, of raw fish, that she's about to stick in someone's mailbox. And when she writes the note, she doesn't capitalize the first letter of the first word. First letter of the first word of the sentence, but she capitalizes the first letter of every other word in the sentence because they don't get enough attention. All right. So I would see that as not a great inciting incident. You are making a good point here. Main character's in love with her. We do crazy things for love. Most great stories are built around that premise. I totally get it. A good inciting incident would be The Martian or Project Hail Mary, or I'm trying to think of some other ones of different genres. You know, in fantasy, you get a lot of good versus evil kind of stuff. By the way, Miss Blogger, I do see what you're posting. I am going to get to some of your stuff here. I got to finish this thought. I'm worried that my live streams are going to be just too ranty, but I'm trying to keep it full. All right. Other good inciting incidents are going to be things that you can't just walk away from. There's a reason why you can't stop. There's a reason why your character has to keep going even if they don't want to. There's a reason that your character can't throw in the towel. There's a reason there's someone that they would let down, whether it's themselves, whether it's the people around them. Those are the kind of things to kind of keep in mind. Your inciting incident can't be, I need to get my rug back. I'm the Big Lebowski, and that rug really ties together the room. Of course, that one kind of is iconic. So, like, it is definitely the not the standard. It is the exception. But you kind of see what I'm saying. Like, your inciting incident of a story. Frodo in Lord of the Rings couldn't just decide to not do anything because, like, everything good was going to end. The world was going to end. Wheel of Time, and I'm trying to figure out different genres. I don't read a ton of just like normal fiction. Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. Ender has to win because humanity will die. But it also, your inciting incident doesn't need to be as high stakes as something like that. What are the things you would look for in a sci-fi world? That is so big of a question. And it's going to vary per reader. So like for your sci-fi world, some people like the hard science fiction of Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Is it going to be a really hard science fiction? Some people are going to like soft science fiction, which is going to just be like, hey, here's like Star Trek. We don't know what the rules are, but it's in the future, and like some technology exists, and we don't know how it works, but yeah. All right, what else we got here? That's our inciting incident. That was a good question. How do you make an inciting incident impactful? You can't just walk away from it. There's probably a whole video on this idea of inciting incidents. But like, yeah, the number one rule I would take away from it is your inciting incident can be impactful because people can't just disappear, right? People can't just walk away from it. You can't throw in the towel. Something has to keep pushing you. It's kind of the biggest thing, right? It sets off all the other things. It can be a lot more complex. There's got to be a video in here just of like how an inciting incident can be a single, like, now our character has to go do this thing. But also an inciting incident can be as big as like, this is a domino effect chain of events that's going to unravel everything as we know it, right? It can be kind of these different kind of stakes. But there's also different kinds of stories. It's worth admitting, a romance book, their inciting incident might be the meet cute. And that's not a high stakes thing. And just like how with John Green, you know, it was something that our character could walk away from, but love makes us do crazy things. So like, I can't get this person out of my head. And now I'm going to sacrifice my big city job to go back into the small town and work, you know, meet this guy who runs this bakery in the small town. And now I'm going to quit my job as a realtor. Maybe I'm getting sidetracked. In Iron Man, when Tony finds out his weapons are being used to attack the people he promised to protect, a moral inciting incident. That's a good one. Paint games. I don't know anything. You're very on brand with your comment. I mostly want to focus on sci-fi war, but I feel like I need to know everything to even start writing. Video coming out in just a couple weeks. That's all about how to stop planning and start writing. Stay tuned. So you're saying the inciting incident is what turns a boring thing into a dang, I gotta end it now because of how it hooks you into something you would easily thrown away. Potentially, yeah. The inciting incident makes you have to go do something, right? There's the fantasy kind of like take on this, which is the quest, right? And you have to go on a quest. You have to go find this thing, destroy this thing, make this thing. Science fiction, you have like The Martian, where the inciting incident here. Oh, you know what? There's actually one other thing to point out here. There are different kinds of inciting incidents. I think it was John Gardner's The Art of Fiction. I have a video on that you can find on my channel. He talks about there's two kinds of inciting incidents. There's causal incidences, maybe what he says. Basically, a character doing something, a character actively causing the inciting incidents to happen. And then there's incidental inciting incidents, which is the idea of The Martian has a ship blow up as it's crashing down to Mars. Main guy gets speared through the chest by a piece of shrapnel, but he survives. Inciting incident. There you go. He wasn't in control of any of that. It just happened to him. Now he's got to resolve it, right? That's your incidental inciting incident. It was kind of, sort of a random act of chance. A lot of mystery books and like police procedurals, the inciting incident is a murder that our main detective most of the time had nothing to do with, but now they're hooked into trying to solve it. That's incidental. It was nothing that they did. That's your inciting incident. So that's the last thing I'll say about inciting incidents. Let's look at some of these comments here and then we'll move on to the climax. Paint games, I don't know. Paint games, I don't know anything. Says, I really want to focus on sci-fi war. I feel like I need to know everything to start writing. Oh, great. My biggest problem with writing is names. I just have such a hard time coming up with a fitting name without it sounding stupid or childish. I do have one video on naming characters. And I have one video, we'll just say the one video on naming characters. You can go check that one out. It's called How to Make Strong Character Names, I think is what it's called. It's my biggest video. It just hit 166,000 views today, which is insane because that's a big number. Crazy. All right, let's answer some questions before we move on to the climax. What are we looking at? I've been looking forward to that video. I've been planning for 3 years. That's not a bad thing. Even my halfway is subject change. Not a bad thing. I think everyone has a story that's kind of like their baby, right? It happens. I mean, it's a story that you invest a lot of yourself in. It totally makes sense. It's okay to plan for a long time. The important part is eventually you got to start writing. That's the whole idea of the proto draft. Check out, oh my God, this is the most important video I've made is about the proto draft. If you haven't seen the video on the proto draft, look at me. Go watch it. Well, I mean, at some point. You don't have to leave the stream. But go watch it. It is all about removing the stress from the first draft, removing the stress that you feel in officially starting to write your story, and giving yourself a way to just it's the idea of like a rough draft, but like an even rougher draft. It's also called other things like the zero draft, draft zero. Basically, do whatever you can to get the story down from start to finish and don't let anything stop you. Make changes in the middle. If you can't write a scene, jot some notes down and move on to the next one as if you wrote it perfectly. It is the most important video I have made. It changed how I write once I got into this mindset. Check it out if you haven't already. I'm telling you, a lot of what boils down to like I always plan and I haven't started writing can be kind of fixed by the proto draft, in my opinion. But we'll do a deeper dive on that in that future video. All right, what else we got here? Planning delays, procrastination, my biggest worries. How do you overcome planning delays and procrastination? Discipline, and discipline is hella hard. I suck at disciplining myself, to making myself do things I don't want. I have a video on motivation in your writing because a lot of that kind of stuff, procrastination, those worries that kind of inch into what you're doing, a lot of that can come down to motivation. When you start doubting yourself, there's typically, I found 3 main ways that I kind of doubt myself. The first is, am I a good enough writer? The second is, I can't remember what I put in that video. Go watch the video. I was much more articulate then. All right, we got a couple more questions here. How do you usually come up with the beginning of your story or the ending of your story first? It's a good question. I can't say specifically that one happens before the other. I think planning a story is all of these different elements concurrently evolving, right? I might want to start thinking about my plot. And I also want to start thinking about my characters. And I also want to start thinking about my settings. Every decision that you make in any one of these things, any one of these areas, influences the kind of things I would then plan for the other areas. If I'm like, okay, I have this idea for the story that's really cool. In my case, like this is going to be a story of, a rebellion against the big government, right? Maybe that's my very first initial starting thing. That's not the beginning or the end, but there are some kind of things you can extrapolate from this kind of story. The end of that story is usually going to have their rebel group overthrowing that government, right? I didn't necessarily plan that thing, but that's kind of what this kind of story tells, Like that's the end of that kind of story. Most stories have a ending that you're supposed to get, right? A found family has that family being united. A quest has that quest, in most cases, succeeding. In slowly piecing things together, here's this rebellion. Well, why is there a rebellion? That's going to lead me to identifying elements about the settings. Oh man, what kind of people live in this world? That's going to help me understand things about the characters. But then those characters are going to influence the kind of story I want to tell with the plot. And that plot's going to go back down and help me figure out what kind of characters deserve to be in that story. And then if you watch my first video on... Hold on, let me go grab this book over here. What? If you watch my first video on the ideation of this, where the first ideas came from, you must be having a hard time seeing. If you watch the first video on how I came up with the ideas for this, it actually takes you through all of those steps. And if you sign up for that newsletter on writingtheory.com, I'm sending out this PDF ebook thing that's an even more detailed breakdown of that exact process. It has like my stream of conscious decision making in those 3 areas and how I ended up on the final idea. Very detailed. Proto draft, not for me. That's fine. That's okay. All right, Miss Blogger, I've seen you post about this character's internal and external conflict. You can check out the story grid video. I think that's where we talk about internal and external conflicts. Internal conflict is going to be the personal journey that a character goes through. External conflict is going to be the conflict that's happening in the world around them. That's the basic description, right? So, what's going to be a good example here? In the case of internal and Indiana Jones is the example I use in the video. I talk about it. Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, there's two storylines happening. There's the internal and the external. Indiana Jones internally is trying to get approval from his father. He's never had it his entire life. We see it time and time again. His father doesn't respect him. His father doesn't treat him like a man, quotes. His father still thinks of him as this boy. He never even calls him his name. He calls him Junior, never calls him Indiana. And at the end of the movie, Indiana Jones is hanging on this cliffside, reaching for the Holy Grail. I almost called it the Hail Mary. The Holy Grail. And his father says, instead of Junior, he says, Indiana, grab my hand. That is the moment of climax for that internal conflict, right? The external conflict was all the Nazis we fought along the way, right? That's the external conflict for that story. Internal, all about the internal journey. What else we got here? I'm watching with pen and paper because getting it out will give me that I did that feeling. Nice. I like that. I do the same thing. I need to try writing a proto draft. I can't recommend it enough. Change my life. So writing a proto draft is writing as fast as possible and skipping the parts that give you anxiety. Yes, but it's like improv, right? But that's the yes and. I wouldn't necessarily say writing as fast as possible, but eliminating the places where you're going to get stuck. Writing a proto draft is all about saying, I'm here to get this story down. I don't know exactly how this scene is supposed to play out, but that's okay. I'm going to be editing this story anyways. The most important thing is to get this story down at some point. You can't edit a blank page. That's the philosophy behind the proto draft. Whether it takes you a little while to do it or you sprint through it, as long as you are continually moving and not getting stuck, that's the proto draft. Gotta take a break from my regular draft and do a proto draft instead. I get too stuck trying to be perfect. That is it. That's why I made that video. It's so important. Can you even hear this? Yes. That is the number one reason to do the proto draft. I talk about it in the video. The first draft is supposed to be your first try getting the story down, but for some reason we think the first draft is supposed to be at a certain level of quality, right? And if you don't hit that quality in your first draft, then what are you doing? And that's not the case. Stephen King in his first draft, he emphasizes, I think it was him, that the first draft is just for you. It's your attempt to get the story down for you, the writer. Maybe you share it with someone, maybe you don't. But the point is, it's your first attempt to get it down. So any of those barriers we can break down, any of those barriers we can remove to help you get that first iteration of that story down, that's the important thing. That's the proto draft. Proto draft gave me permission to just write and not get caught up in sentence variety. Yes, right. I love it. Exactly. I switched POVs, or not POV, perspectives. I started writing an urban fantasy. It's the story I'm working on now. That was in third person. And partway through the story, I was like, this would be a lot better in first person. In a first draft, without this idea of the proto draft, I would have had to scrap all of my work. But you know what I did in the proto draft? I just wrote in parentheses, I'm changing the perspective to first person, close parentheses, and I kept writing. And you know what? I was able to get 25,000 words down before, life pulled me in another direction. I started publishing this book. So I'm telling you, the proto draft is key. I can see the proto draft being super helpful, especially when huge characters you found compulsory suddenly disappear because you realize I can write around it. Interesting. How do you approach a story without a clear antagonist? That's a really good question. The first thing I would say is if you're writing a story that doesn't have a clear antagonist, what are you defining as your antagonist? Because your antagonist doesn't need to be a specific character. Your antagonist can be the setting that's around you. You know, think of Lost, right? Lost, part of this whole deal is that the island is basically a character. I freaking love Lost. Lost has got to be some of the best storytelling ever done, in my personal opinion, not my professional opinion. So there needs to be something that's going against your main characters. It may not need to be a person. It could be a setting. Think about it. What story is your baby, and has it been published? My baby. Oh, I could talk for hours about my baby. You don't want to hear about my baby. My baby is a upper middle grade YA fantasy story about a character who puts all of their trust in going to this magical school to learn about their rare powers, and all of the teachers let them down. And so the whole story is about her trying to make her way when all the people who were supposed to guide her failed. And all the mistakes that she makes that try to set her back, but she keeps rising above. That's my baby. It's called Stone Point Academy. Not published, but it may be the first story I write that I don't try to self-publish. I might try to shop that one around. What should I do? I don't want to write. You got this. You can do it. Olin Roger. Oh my God. Wow. You are going to make my cousin, who I'm very close with, my cousin Bo, very happy with that comment. Hold on. I'm going to go ahead and send him a picture of this. Oh man, that's hilarious. Here's the thing. Ivory Tempest. I know you don't want to hear about my baby, my story, but just like I would love to show you pictures of my dogs, I would also love to talk about my baby. You get it. You get it. You get it. All right. How do you decide what perspective to use while writing your story? Oh, you know what? Let's close. Let's do some chatting here. What do we want to do? Okay. How do you decide what perspective to use while writing your story? It varies per story because your perspective needs to serve the story. Whew. All right, this is big. This is big. Your perspective needs to serve the story. The reason why I switched perspectives in my urban fantasy story 20,000 words in was because I realized that a character experiencing something that's blowing their mind, a character that is out of their depth, that kind of story would best be portrayed where we get to see inside their thoughts, right? When everything you know is breaking apart and the reality that you know is no longer reality, that is when we need to be in a character's head experiencing that disconnect. That's how I chose to move the perspective from third person to first person. How do you choose it in other stories? Part of it's going to be what you naturally like to write in. If you're writing your first draft, your first story, write whatever you feel most comfortable in. And it's only after you are sort of finding your legs as a writer should you start experimenting a little bit more. The best use of first person. The best use of first person in any story I've seen is The Will of the Many by James Islington. If you want to read a book and intentionally try to pick apart why first person works so well, that is, in my opinion, the premier example. Great book, too, by the way. A lot of fun. Came out this year. With a proto draft, would you make breaks and keep writing or write in a chapter format? It doesn't get that finicky, I guess is the right way to say. When you're doing your proto draft, it's not so much like, I'm just going to keep writing and nothing's going to stop me. It's more about avoiding those distractions and the other things that would make you, delay writing, that would get you stuck, that would put you in writer's block. So if your story is going to be in chapter format, write in chapter format. The proto draft isn't necessarily never stop writing. It's just avoid all the things that would drag you down. So, however you want to present your story, I do it in chapters because I use Scrivener as my writing tool of choice. Have I experimented with writing sci-fi? Yes, I love sci-fi. I love science fiction. I love fantasy, my two favorite genres, and all the little intricacies inside of those. There's hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi, just like there's hard magic systems and soft magic systems in fantasy. I'm personally a soft sci-fi kind of person. I'm not trying to figure out exactly why all the tech works in this world that I'm writing in. Just like how when I'm writing a fantasy something, I'm not trying to figure out exactly why all of the magic, what are all the rules behind the magic? I believe in soft science fiction, soft fantasy. I like writing, exploring cool worlds, putting characters in cool situations and environments. Love it all. What would you say is a good middle ground for a quick story? Whew. What do you mean? If you middle ground, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Let me know in chat. Right. How'd you come up with working on publishing other stories before your baby? Oh, right. That is a great question. Whew. How did you come about working on and publishing other stories before your other stories? Watch out, Moosey. You mean this story? Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs? Is that the one you're talking about, Rye? Hold on. Just to make sure, are you talking about this book right here? This beautiful 300-page. Wow. You talking about that one? Oh, by the way, this physical copy, so good. August 20th. If you want to support the channel, the Discord, these kind of live streams, best way you can do it is by picking up this book, August 20th. Okay. That's a really good question because clearly I wanted to work on my baby. That's like the whole point of having a story that you care so much about that you call it your baby. The real answer, you know what? No, come back here. The real answer is I was worried I wasn't going to do my baby justice. I was worried that I wasn't a good enough writer yet. And if I wrote the story that was my baby and I didn't do it well enough, I would never have another chance to write it. That's the real answer. I know. Whew. Let's take a step back. Oh man, that got real. It got really real. I know that's relatable. I know I'm not the only person who feels that way. So I decided to write another book to hone my skills, learn more about the process. So when it came to writing my baby, I would feel better about it. I would feel more confident going into it. And honestly, yeah, it happened. I feel way more confident. Just the fact of going through a process of holding that book back there in my hand fills me with so much, I don't know, happiness and excitement. And I don't know, it is very, I think it's important that you need to finish a story before you start even thinking about what story is your baby. You're not going to write just one story. You're going to write a lot of them. And you're going to be proud of, hopefully, every single one, you know? A library tour. This isn't even my library down. These are all just my writing books. One, I don't know if you guys know this. Watch out, Moose. Moose is under my feet. I don't know if you guys know this. I live in a big log cabin in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. My library is on the top floor of that cabin, and I would love to give you a tour one day. It's a lot of science fiction and fantasy. I'm currently reading Reaper's Gale, the 7th or 8th book of Malazan. I can't remember how that. I call it Malazan, Book of the Fallen. And I'm currently reading The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang, I think is the author's name. Those are what's in. All right, Miss Blogger says, what is your character's favorite memory? I can't really give you one. There's a lot of characters and a lot of memories. There is a moment of exposition in this book right back here. Between our two main characters who are married, reminiscing on all of the moments that they saw in their all the moments in their relationship that they think about that centers them when they're feeling anxiety and anger and stress and overwhelming emotions. All their history. In fact, your boy flipped to the page. I cried when I wrote that. It's a damn good passage. That's maybe my character's favorite memory. The first time they met each other, the first time they kissed, the first time all the good things happened to them, and how supportive they were when bad things happened. Kind of love how everyone's asking questions about how to do the proto draft. The whole point of the proto draft, there's no wrong way to do it. There is no wrong way to do it. Whatever gets you writing, whatever keeps you writing, that is definitely the most important thing. I'm writing a first-person journal-style science fiction, and it's very hard sci-fi. I've softened up a bit, but I think maybe I could do more. You definitely can. Here's the big thing. It's hard to keep up with chat. I gotta tell you, I'm new to this. There's an audience for hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. You write the story you want to write, and the readers will find you. That's right. How long would you say is a good length for a good story? I want to write, but I don't want to become a super writer. I just want to make a few stories for a world to explain it. All right, here's the deal. I went into writing, I'm not going to do the whole bit again. I went in writing that book wanting to write a novella. 30, 40,000 words. And at the rate that I write, that was going to take sitting down and writing 10 times, maybe. Yeah, just about. It took me 17 sessions of writing to write my 43,000 words for the proto draft. Scrivener has a writing history setting that you can look back on. It tells you how many words you wrote each day. Some days I hit my usual when I sit down and write and I'm like writing for a while, I can hit 3, 4, 5,000 words in a session. Sometimes I hit 200, 300. I'm not feeling it that day. It took me 17 sessions to write that proto draft. I say if you're looking for a good length for a story, start with a novella. Make it something not super long. Shoot for 20,000 words. 20,000 words you can do a lot with. Adding also making games. Team Godot. No longer Team Unity from their crap that they pulled last year. Team Godot. My baby is not my primary project for the same reason, Pilot Alex says. Yeah, dude. I get it. You got to build up confidence, you know? Got to build up confidence. But the thing is, like, it's also going to be easy to talk yourself into never being ready to write that story that's your baby, you know? It can be very easy to talk yourself into that. Watch out, Lucy. At some point, you got to pull the trigger. But I also think you should kind of feel out for when it's right, you know? After I finished this book, I didn't dive into writing my baby. Here's the thing. It's that Stone Point Academy book. I have all these big grand plans. And I already have a proto draft that's at 70,000 words for it. But I'm probably going to rewrite the whole thing. Because I've learned so much since I started that proto draft years ago. And I've learned so much in, I think I've just grown as a writer. And that's always going to happen. But at some point, it's going to feel right that you're going to start writing that story that is your baby. And then you're going to have a blast. I have two ideas. A Nimona-like world where technology and magic meet. And one of reliving growing up with prior knowledge. I'm willing to drop the second idea and catch the L and have my first true love. Every great story is a combination of at least two different unique ideas. These two guys, you get bam, 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 two ideas. You can totally pull that off. As long as both of those ideas are fully represented in your story and one's not feeling like it's like the side story being shoehorned in, you know? You should write that. That's a unique story. Have you ever read Eastern Literature, Journey to the West? I have not, and I would love to explore more worldly literature. The only worldly literature I've read has been stuff that I encountered in school and college. I wanted to read Shogun, which I don't think that doesn't count as Eastern literature. I think that's still Western literature. But then I realized I wanted also to not read it because it was so long. Currently having trouble breaking away from my main story. There is no other story I want to write. Sounds to me, Ivory Tempest, sounds to me like you could maybe hop into one of our writing challenges that we do every 4 to 6 weeks is I think the time frame I initially set, and just write and finish something. Because like if you're not in the Discord already, hop in the Discord. That's where we announce these kind of things. The next writing challenge is going to be a Discord only event. Our last one was also Discord only, as I'm sort of figuring out all the last little bits I need to change about how we run these things before we open it up to bigger audiences. But that gives you an excuse to step away from your main story, to write something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then in that process of trying this out, I bet you're going to figure out, hey, I would love to write something else too. Do you suffer similar issues? I always have something I could be writing. Like I always have another idea I want to explore. I guess the hardest thing is to make yourself write. Rye says the writing challenge really reinvigorated me. It was so much fun. I'm so glad to hear that. That was kind of the whole reason we did it was, man, to give you every excuse to write, to give you a reason to put some words down on a page, be excited about them, finish them, just like you said. That's the whole reason. I want to give you every excuse to write. The next one is gonna be a little different. I got some tricks up my sleeve. If I was wearing my sleeve. But yeah, there's a link in the description if you want to join the Discord. Come hang out. Come ask feedback from 170 something other people about your story and answer questions and provide feedback for others. It's really nice. Pilot Alex says, I used the writing challenge to expand on a world I had just begun to create, motivating me to work on my world a little more. I love that. I love it. It was such a big success. Miss Blogger says, what is your favorite fantasy trope to write and why? Whoo! A lot of answers to this one. The number one is going to be a quest story. I love having characters out on a mission to accomplish a quest. Wait. How many people do we have? Okay. I thought we were almost at 300. Okay. I said that to someone. And then I looked in the Discord and I saw something that said like 170. And then I was like, oh no, I've just been blowing up these numbers for street cred. Okay, must have been looking at the wrong place. I can't figure out how to see all the total members of our Discord, dude. That's crazy. Thank you for setting me straight. Don't tell anyone I got that number wrong. Don't tell anyone. Shh. Keep it on the down low. I love a quest trope. Not so much like specifically like you're going on a quest. But no, you're right. We do. I knew the number had to be up there, but the number I saw later on, I probably saw it somewhere else. I love a quest story. There is, sleeper fantasy hit of the decade. No one's reading this book. No one is reading this book. It is so good. It's called, if you like this kind of quest fantasy, if you want a story of friends, of a bromance, of friends who will stick together through thick and thin. You know what? No, hold on. Come here. If you want a story of brothers from other mothers. Thank you, Lucy. Of characters that will stick together through thick and thin, who have no choice but to take that next step on the quest together, exploring. You need to check out The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. I was 6 pages into that book, and I knew it would be one of my favorite books ever. The prose, out of this world. So good. The prose is phenomenal. And then on top of that, the characters, the bromance, the settings, the trials they go through, and the ending, mind-blowing. The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. Check it out. Have you ever read The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury? I haven't. I am... This is tough to admit. Dang, Rye. She says she's clipping. This is not the goal of the live stream. I've been sleeping on Ray Bradbury. I know I need to read more of him. I really want to read. What's the story? Something Wicked This Way Comes, I think is what it's called. I would love to read that. That's been on my TBR for a while. Amy, yes. The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. You will not be disappointed. Prose. Stray Bubble says, what are prose? So this is Prose. Prose. Here, I'll even jot it down here so we can see it. Prose. Prose. This is going to be the way that you put words down on a page, the way that you put your sentences together. Think of it like the difference between writing that the curtains were blue and writing in a style that has more descriptive prose would be the draping curtains with their indigo waves flowed from top to bottom in a way that like a waterfall and blah, 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 right? Prose is being able to put your sentences together with description and imagery, not so much symbolism, which was like always the kind of thing in like language class that you might have encountered that drove you crazy. Your teacher was like, what does the blue curtain mean? What does it mean? No, but it's like how enjoyable it is to read something. Prose, prose. Unhinged. All right. I'm in a weird spot. I have this world created in my mind during the last 2 to 3 years, and I document with some of those ideas. I find it's hard to find a spot where to begin. Oh, my guy or girl, paint games. I don't know anything. Not next week. I think in a couple weeks, I'll have a video on this channel specifically to help you answer that question. How to stop planning and start writing. Make sure you're subscribed. Oh, man. Life of Pi. What is the color orange? Oh, so you essentially the style in which you write. Yeah, it is how you put words together in a way that's descriptive and all that. Here, Bo, my cousin Bo, just hopped in the chat. Let me send him this screenshot of this high compliment that someone gave me. Look at the highlighted message. There you go, buddy. All right. The high school flashback. It really do be like that, don't it? I really do. All right. Feel free to continue posting your questions in here. Things that you guys are struggling with. You want more information. Release when ready stage. All right. Feel free to keep posting your stuff in the chat. I'm going to talk about the climax of a top level of the plot term iceberg, the climax. Every plot framework talks about the climax of your story, right? That's when everything culminates. Everything comes to the head. Everything gets real, right? This is when all of your narrative threads, all of the seeds you planted early in your story, and all of the tension that you've been building culminate into a big moment. That's your climax. That's going to be, what would be some good examples? That's going to be Lord of the Rings. Frodo's at the Mount Doom ready to throw that big old ring into that big old hole, right? That's going to be in the Two Towers. That was kind of weird because that would be a really long time. I'm not sure. But yeah, everything kind of culminates to a head. Everything that you've done prior to this point pays off. That's the climax. How do you find a main conflict when you have a novel concept? Ooh. How do you figure out what the conflict's going to be? So when you're figuring out a plot, first off, that's part of the whole deal is like, when you're figuring out a plot, the plot will naturally include a climax. And if your plot doesn't naturally have a climax, then you probably haven't planned your plot out enough. And that's coming from someone who is kind of notoriously a bad planner. I don't do a ton of planning beforehand. The best thing I would do for your case is, how do you find a main conflict? Go look at a plot framework. It's going to sort of walk you through what steps you need to take to get to your climax, which is going to be your main conflict, but it's also going to be in the theme of your story. Your theme of your story might be like, I'm writing a story about the rebels going up against the government. That was an example we used earlier here. The natural climax for that kind of story is going to be when the rebels face off, finally, against overthrowing the government, right? And it's even Sean Coyne in the Story Grid, you can check out my video on that, he even goes so far as to claim that certain kinds of stories will all have kind of the same inciting incidents and the same climaxes. Every murder starts with every murder mystery book, not every murder, oh God. Every murder mystery book starts with finding a body and ends with confronting the killer. That's the natural inciting incident and climax of that story in that genre. And you could probably distill every story in there down to that being true, you know? So one thing, I'd look at your genre. How do you find that main conflict? Look at your genre. What's the kind of story you're telling? What kind of conflicts are those stories encountering? And then also, is there sort of a theme to your story? Theme, there's another whole video with theme. Probably should stop drumming on the mic. Theme can kind of influence that, because if your story is about something like finding your own independence as a kid, right? Every murder starts with a story. If you're writing a story about a coming-of-age story where someone realizes that their parents don't know what's best for them and they're breaking away from, an abusive situation, the climax of that story is going to fit in with that theme. It's going to be the point where they break away from that situation. It's going to be a point where they confront this part of themselves. That's your climax. That's your conflict, right? How do you come up with that? That's part of the fun. That's figuring out what story you want to tell. If you have everything but the conflict, you're probably missing something right in front of you, because the conflict kind of fits in with everything. The theme kind of surrounds everything. It all kind of works together. Was it me who was saying that you don't believe in keeping a list of ideas? Hold on. Let me pull you in close here. I do not believe in keeping a journal or list of story ideas. That is correct. And that's probably I don't know if it's my hottest take. I gotta stop messing with the microphone. I don't know if it's my hottest take. It is a pretty spicy take, though. The idea being that if you write down every kind of idea that you have, you're capturing a lot of ideas that, one, you're never going to write, but also, two, ideas that probably don't have the legs to make a full, good story. And if you're jotting all of those down with ideas that maybe do have the right legs, it sounds weird. The stories that have the potential to be these big stories that you can write an entire book about. Now you're creating a situation where you have to filter through all of this list of stories and all of these 50 ideas that you've culminated, And there's not really a good way of you telling which one is really the kind of idea that's going to be good enough to expand a whole story. You can probably write anything. You probably can. But in the case here, I think that the story ideas that you come up with that really have potential, that you're really passionate about, those are the ideas that stick with you, even if you don't write them down. I think I've got 5 story ideas, and those are the only 5 that I will write because they're the ones that are, big enough that they've stuck in my head for a decade. So yeah. How do you find the theme in your story? It's a really good idea. Really good question. Theme is kind of this hard concept. Some people think that you have to have a theme going into your story. Some people think that the most important part of your story is the theme because that's like the overarching message. And if your story doesn't have a theme, then is it a story? I don't believe that. I think that how do you find the theme of your story? Find it in your editing. This is something that both Stephen King and Anne Lamott say in On Writing and Bird by Bird, respectively, where they write their story first. They write their story, they get it all down, and then afterwards is when they start thinking, okay, what is the message I'm trying to tell? What sort of encompasses this whole story that I've written? And they don't then expand on that theme specifically to say, now I'm really going to make it fit in this theme. But instead, if there are elements of that story that are blatantly going against that theme, then maybe we want to change those elements. If your story is all about finding family and you have a moment in your story where that found family betrays your main character, that kind of goes against that positive found family concept. You know what I mean? So yeah, finding a theme, I think write your story. If you have a theme already in mind that naturally has kind of been part of your planning process, by all means, use it. But if you don't have a theme currently and you're about to start writing, don't think you need to figure that out before. Write your story. The story comes first, and then if you want to expand on that into some kind of theme, then you can do that. Let's see, what else we got? I mean, the fear of turning 100% story into 120% story can give a bloat, so I can see why you should accept the idea only if you're good, if your heart remembers it. Yeah. Keep 5 stories in this bad boy. That's all the room I got. I cannot stop thinking about not keeping a list, like the idea that only good ideas stick. It makes me really consider only the ideas I remember. I think there's something there. But also, if you have a journal that you've been writing in for years and it's full of all your story ideas, don't go throwing it away because some random handsome redhead on YouTube says that you should. By all means, keep it. Keep it. If you want to keep adding to it, can. This is just my process. If I wrote down every story idea that I had, I'd probably have a notebook with 50 story ideas. But when it came time to write my next story, I would probably look at that list, not choose anything, and just write the next thing that came onto my mind. If that makes sense. When you have a list of 50 story ideas, I would imagine that gets pretty daunting. I don't know. I don't have a list of 50 story ideas. You tell me. If I didn't list down my ideas and those ideas who were listed down were barely 1 out of 10 of my ideas, then I would have forgotten some cool characters. Very true. Very true. That's definitely like the other side of this conversation is maybe there are cool things that you should be writing down. Personally, I don't do it. That's just my way. How do you know if your story would benefit from a prologue? Oh, Amy, you just found my first ever video? Yeah, the first ever video I did was called The Importance of Pacing. And the importance of pacing really focused on something called, really focused on something called the action prologue. The action prologue is when you have a slow start to your story and maybe it's kind of a slow burn. That's prime real estate to have a prologue that's packed with action right? We see that in the Wheel of Time. We see that in some other famous. Game of Thrones has an action prologue. That's the example I used in that video. It's all about how you want to start your story. Some authors love to have a story that has that slow burn start. We have a character waking up for their first day of high school. They're going to go to school. They're going to see this new building. They're going to meet new people. Great, that's your story. Other people will say, I have a slow start to my story. I need to, make it more punchy. I need to make that story pack a little bit more excitement in it. And then that's when you would consider doing a prologue. Now, there's one person in our Discord community that had this exact same question that you should definitely go check out. And that was, I believe her name is Coraby. Is maybe her Discord username. You've seen her around. She has a post where she asks, I have the story. Do I start it with this prologue that I have written, or do I start with chapter 1? And here are both examples. And she posts that both of those examples here, and you can kind of see the effect. Now, in her case, I would recommend that she didn't use that prologue. It didn't carry enough weight going into the story. And so chapter 1 might be a better example of that. So prologue is all about how you want to start that story. So is a meaty character description at the start quirky or helpful? Or should one accept it? Should one just accept it and let the reader imagine how the characters look? Maybe this is my second hot take. We're back, baby. I need a scene that has just like Carson's hot takes across the top. Here's a question for you, everyone in the chat. Why does the reader need to know the appearance of your main character? I'll let you cook on that one. Give me your answers in the chat. Why is the appearance of your character important to your story? Some people might say I have a plot based around some element of that character's appearance. Like they have blonde hair, and it turns out only people in the royal family have blonde hair. And that's our key, that this character was part of royalty all along, and now they're going to become the heir to the kingdom. Okay. Other people are going to say, and this is me predicting, that's all about the author's vision. The reader, the author's putting together a vision of their story, and the reader needs that information to properly envision what the author's trying to say. Characterization. It could be that having a character who maybe is a down on their luck, dumpy character makes them relatable to the reader. It makes the reader want to root for them. They're not the popular, super attractive, gets all the guys or girls kind of character. They're just happy-go-lucky, happy to be here, totally average person. And that could be characterization. It builds a vibe reference that we can be distinctly remembered when referenced in the story. Is this vibe connected to appearance, though? Or can vibe be connected to personality? I would personally connect it to personality. It's important because if people go around doing fan art, I do not want them messing the details up. You know what? One day I strive to have fan art. I would probably cry if someone showed me fan art from one of my stories. I don't have a main character there for describing all characters needed, the difference between the different characters. If you want more of Carson's hottest take, Set is dead. We'll talk about Set is dead. I think what's most important to me is how the other characters interact with that information. How does character A view character B? Is that different for character C? That's a really good point. Using other characters interacting with your main character sometimes even says more about how an audience member can relate to, or a reader, I say audience member, how a reader can relate to a character, because other people think that they're nerdy. Other people think that they're cool. Other people think that they're X, Y, or Z. And especially in a first-person story, if we're in that character's head and we know that's not right, now there's this disconnect, and that can be an interesting thing to explore. What else we got here? Well, mine is off the Secret Bloodline variety, so I got your number. Yeah, I do. I know. I've been around the block a couple times. Don't make me fan art. I would cry. I would cry if someone made fan art. Got me dead to rights with this one. He's hitting every nail would have been used. He's slick. Oh, man. Maybe the main character can change face, and the main face is what someone's looking for. I also like to disclose information how the characters look when it makes sense organically. I want fan art of the Writing Theory logo. Does the little robot have the name? Oh, Rye, are you talking about the Jotbot? That's the name, the Jotbot. And I'll have you know, I'm currently having the Jotbot redesigned by a member of our very own community. Interesting. One day, if the YouTube channel does well, if the live streams are popping off, if the books are selling, and it makes sense, I would totally do a little plushie of the Jotbot. A new person, however, I'd be noticing more details as I'm taking in the face, body, posture, style. I will make you cry. How do I come up with planet names for 40 different planets? Good God. Why do you need 40 planet names? That's a lot. Hot take, I'm writing the Momoa-like book based on racism, okay, which is already thin ice, so the looks of the character is helping me to show we're all the same. Okay, so if it's in the theme, if the appearance plays a critical role in your plot, yeah, you should definitely include that character appearance for sure. Jotbot fan art ASAP. Tyler Mowry. Yeah, I'll check out Tyler Mowry. I can do that. I'm taking it that Tyler Mowry is not the husband of that other Mowry that I knew back in Atlanta. Okay. Hilarious. Okay, yeah. So here's the deal. We got some other things up here that people asked. First, I'm gonna cap off the character appearance thing. Let's zoom out a little bit. I'm gonna cap off the character appearance thing. So, I would argue that having a very specific character description is not necessary for your story. Whew. Not necessary for your story. That's a hot take. But character description can be a great way for you to sort of flex your chops as a writer. But don't, you know what? Bring it in closer again. Look at me. Look at me. For the love of God, do not tell me your character description by having your main character look in a mirror. Don't do it. I know you're thinking about it. Don't do it. Hey, don't do it. You can do better. We can all do better. We've all done it. We've all done it. Everyone here in this chat has probably done it. But don't do it. Don't do it. That's all I gotta say. It's been done a billion times. It's been done a billion times more. And it's the same every time. I did it in one of my earlier proto drafts I was writing back in college, which, as I think about it, was now 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, I had a character who looked at himself in the mirror, got the description of who this character was, and he left. And then the whole point of that entire section of that book was just for me to tell you what this character looked like. Now, as a more experienced writer, I was going to say better writer. That may not be the case. As a more experienced writer, now I will know to tease out the details about this character's appearance through character interactions, through being mistaken for someone else, through having some element of their appearance be critical to some plot point, and then put that out there. And does the rest of it really matter? Does their shoe size matter? Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? You tell me. I always feel a little disconnected. This is what Rai says. I always feel a little disconnected from female main characters that have nothing in common with me physically. Yeah, that's a fear of mine. Writing a book is that here I have two fears when I'm describing my main characters or side characters. Is that one, am I doing something wrong with the representation in my novel? I feel like by going out and saying specific details about people, am I excluding certain people in a way that I'm not meaning to? That would make me feel bad. Am I making it be, I don't know, am I making this character, I don't know, what's the point, I guess is the whole thing I'm saying. I'm not saying don't describe your characters, but I am saying that other authors have done that exact thing and still written a great story. You know, I'm not told every detail about what a character looks like, but that's okay, right? I'm mostly experiencing their actions, their personality, their thoughts, more so than what I'm experiencing their physical appearance. Yeah. I was going to have a scene of a blonde girl cut and dye her hair for development. It's making me realize the drawing board ain't enough. I need a drawing field. That hits. That hits. Yeah, I feel that. It's kind of a cliche in the terms of things like dyeing the hair or cutting the hair as character development that we see in like some teen movies. Here's the thing. You don't have to choose to subvert every cliche. You can do that. You don't even have to do it in a new way. But as long as you're aware of it and you're not doing it in a cheap way, as long as it still carries weight, you can have a character that goes through that sort of physical transformation as part of their character development, because you do see that kind of thing in real life. So don't totally shy away from it. You know, I always say you need to know enough about things like cliches. You need to know enough about these kind of things so that you can choose when, where, and how to subvert them, right? Learn about those cliches, learn about those tropes, learn about those kind of things. Choose whether or not you want to defy them. Chekhov's crack. Oh, you know my plumber? Okay. It's funny about the mirror because there's a scene I've written where we have a character look in the mirror, but I subvert it by completely ignoring his appearance to have him look at his clothes. Hey, that's what I'm saying, right? Be aware of the cliche. Choose whether or not you want to subvert it. The mirror scene would be funny in a vampire story. I looked in the mirror. Hold on. I looked in the mirror. What? I'm not a voice actor. I can't do this. Also, I'm not good enough at improv to come up with that whole description. Brutal. Let's get out of here. Insane. She calls me beautiful. I wish I could see if she's right. I like that. Someone write a good comedy vampire story. I think that would go off on Book Talk. Reflection would work in isekai or portal fantasy. Is that so? One of these streams, I need to recruit some people to help me understand the story, tropes, and types found in anime and manga. Because, like, I've had to Google isekai. That's like going into, like, being transported to a new world, right? Like, Overlord, I think, is one of them. Maybe? I don't watch any anime. So, one day here, we're going to do a live stream, and I'm going to have you guys help me understand anime and manga tropes, because I want to know them so I can use them, because what manga and anime I have been exposed to has always been awesome. My inspirations are Warhammer, old Star Wars, and good music. Are there any other things I should draw inspiration from? Paint games, I don't know anything. Let me answer you with your own name. Paint games. I don't know anything. I get inspiration from science. I get inspiration from YouTube videos that I watch. I get inspiration from real life. I get inspiration from movies and TV and books. Inspiration can come from anywhere. Stephen King famously, and I've said this in a couple videos, got his inspiration for the book Carrie from 2 Time magazine articles. One on teen cruelty and bullying, and the other one on telekinesis. Those 2 ideas, merge them together, Something about those two ideas stuck out to him, inspired him, wrote his breakout novel. You can get inspiration from anywhere. The dad jokes. Edward, are you playing in the mirror again? Love it. All right, Danish is cooking. He's cooking. But its book talk does actually need to be good to pop off. Oh, God. Shots fired. I have not read any of the big book talk books, but my wife has. She's enjoyed them. I've cracked them open before and been like, eesh, personally. I looked in the mirror. Items floated in my hand like I'm not meant to exist in this realm. I can't see her parents in the day. Wait, what does this say? But I can't come at night. I wish the sun wasn't as judgmental. Hold on. That's my father. Why does it go kind of hard? Basically, Isekai is Track-kun kills the MC and he becomes God. And what? Maybe I misunderstood what Isekai was. Arthur gets history or gets inspiration from Splatoon history in your personal life. Yes, love it. Science is one of my favorites. Oh, hey, is it ethereal or ether? Ether? Real? Lay, maybe? Welcome here. Well, hello. There's a subset of isekai where a woman gets killed and becomes okay. I'm sure there's plenty of different iterations on this idea. How much is too much? The protagonist is obviously a view of you, but you're trying to beat the self-insert allegations. Yeah. I know Shinji from Evangelion works because How much is too much if the protagonist is obviously a view of you? Well, I would say, first off, it's not really an issue if the protagonist is a view of you. Now, is this like, if you write a story where the protagonist is you, and then it turns into a power fantasy, the thing is, it's still a story. The only times, how many people are going to read this that you know versus how many people are going to read this that you don't know? And they're going to have no idea that you've self-inserted yourself into a story. I think a lot of great authors have self-inserted them to a story, and I think we do it with every single character. There's always some element of us or people that we know in a character because we're drawing on real life inspiration. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have a character that is a self-insert. It's the only time that it would feel uncomfortable is when it's people that you know who are reading it. But how many people who don't know you are going to read this? I don't know. Can we do a rapid fire list of your favorite pieces of writing advice? One of mine is read broadly. Favorite pieces of writing advice. Okay. Let me cook. You know what? Let's take a quick little break. I'm going to get some more water here, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to give you a rapid fire list of my favorite writing advice. We're going to do it together. Peace. I've never done this before. I don't really know what's going to happen when I click insert ad. So let's see what happens. Did it happen? What? I'm so confused. Oh, and I haven't used any stream markers. There's a lot to learn when it comes to live streaming. I thought it would turn the stream off for 30 seconds. Goodbye, Paint Games, anything, I don't know. Literally not. All right, then let bro cook. Let me cook. So, okay, you know what? Sidebar about Amazon ads. Here's the thing. Not Amazon, YouTube ads. So when you create a YouTube video, You can either let YouTube automatically put ad markers throughout your video where it thinks it would work best. And you also have the way for you to manually move those around, remove some, add some. And the thing is, like, they tell you that when an ad marker is sort of put on this video, that not every viewer will experience all of those ads. And they tell you that, like, on average, a viewer who clicks on this video will experience, I don't know, 1.5 ads or something like that. I've had people click on my videos, like family members, and show me, and it's got like ads all over the place. I don't know what the heck to do. Okay. Sidebar done. Literally nothing happened. Okay. So here's some of my rapid fire writing advice. And I want to do a writing advice video in the future with other writing content creators. I want to do like a little collaborative kind of video. The number one thing that comes to mind. The number one thing that comes to mind is the proto draft. If there is one thing I could recommend to people when it comes to, I need help, I need some way to help me move. You can skip the ads. It won't hurt my feelings. I appreciate it, though. The number one thing I could recommend to people is, like, for real, try the proto draft. Try that method. That is the number one thing I would recommend to anyone who is struggling to write and finish a story. Those are two different things. To start a story, to finish a story. You got to find a way to get that story down. The statistic, oh my God, the Discord blowing up. The Discord here. You guys are too loud. I got to mute you real fast. All right. So, the most important thing about writing is getting that story down, and it's the hardest thing to do. Editing, not easy, but you know what? In the future, you may work with an editor. Getting your story down the first time in its full iteration, that is the single hardest thing about writing. So you need to find whatever way you can to make that process easier, and the proto draft is it for me, and I hope it is for you. Other writing advice, I would say foreshadowing is probably the most satisfying and effective tool you can use in writing, in my opinion. I have never felt as much satisfaction in a story as realizing this little detail earlier on in the story had big implications later on in the story. And a lot of people think, how do I do that? How do I say, YouTube book advice, oh, that's nice. All right. How do I say I'm going to start writing a story and I want to plant these seeds and I want them to pay off later when I don't really know where the story's going? Here's the crazy thing, and I didn't know this until I wrote, oh, this book here. Okay, I got to stop doing that. It stops being funny after a certain amount of time. It's still funny to me, but I didn't realize that foreshadowing and narrative payoffs and setups and all of these breadcrumbs, if you want to call it that, happens mostly in the editing process. After you've gotten the story down and you figured out how things need to end, then you go back earlier in the story and plant all the seeds. And that was like, oh my God, that changed everything. Now I felt like I could write stories with those kinds of satisfying payoffs. Foreshadowing, in my opinion, is the most satisfying kind of... I say foreshadowing, I don't really know if that's the right word. Foreshadowing seems to be hinting at something that's happening later. Maybe I should be saying, like, when you set up something and it has a big payoff later. That's maybe... I don't know if there's a better word for it. Let me know. Danish Patron says, I'm stuck on the vampires. They lose their reflection, can no longer do good makeup. That's looking like a clown. Scary clowns are vampires. Oh my. Hold on. Wow. He cracked the code. Okay, other sort of writing advice, rapid fire, because I do want to wrap up the stream here before too long. You got better things to do than listen to me chat. We'll do this again. I've had a lot of fun. I really appreciate you joining. Setup and payoff is huge. Other writing advice, I would say another thing that blew my mind, because I for some reason I thought every single one of these great writers out there in their proto draft or their first draft, whatever, that they were writing these deep, detailed characters, just pulling them straight out the dome piece, putting them on paper, and it was like killing it. And then I realized, you know what? Editing is so important. When you start writing your first draft, when you start writing your proto draft, whatever you would like to call it, when you start writing, you have a snapshot at who these characters are. By the time you finish writing that first draft, that snapshot may no longer even be accurate. You have spent so much time in this world with these characters that by the end of your book, you know that they are way different than what you originally thought. And let's get a little crazy here. I'm going to open up chat. We're going to end on a bang here. We're going to end on a bang. I'm going to open up my Scrivener file for Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs. Hear me out. All right. This is part of my screen. We're going off here. We're doing it. Moose is stretching. Bailey is laying in the corner. They're excited for this just like we are. Okay? When I started writing this book, this is for real how different maybe my writing process is from other people's, and their process is going to be very different than mine. There's not one that's better or worse than the other. But when I started this whole process, check this out. One of my characters, I always cast my characters, so Nick Offerman made it as one of my main characters here. The entire character description for one of my main characters started out really as just this part. He wants to care for his family. He wants to support his wife. He didn't really want to be a farmer, but he followed the role of his father, and he doesn't have any regrets now. That was the full character description when I started writing. And you're probably like, that's not enough. That's not a character, that's a sentence. That's what it started out as. And by the end of the book, I had a full, deep, realistic character that I loved. But it was because so much of their personality came through their decisions and interactions with other characters and how they chose to, let me say it this way, what they chose to be upset and excited and fearful about. That's what determined who this character was going to be, not my initial little sketch of who this character was. At the end of the story, this hardly mattered. Isn't that crazy? I had a character who, let's open this back up. I had a character who, when I started writing, they didn't even exist. Halfway through the proto draft, I was like, we need a little bit extra here. 2 lines in the picture. Yeah, look, I had a character in my proto draft that didn't exist in the planning stage, but halfway through the story, I realized there needed to be one more element to this family for it to work. If you watched my latest video on the writing process for this book, I talk about there's different kinds of going into a story. You either follow the recipe. This was a cooking analogy. You follow the recipe and you plan and portion everything out to prepare yourself for going through and cooking. Or you spend that same amount of time sort of understanding what your story needs and the reasoning behind it. And then as you're writing, you're making changes and you're finding out how this thing needs to come together. And of course, the analogy I use in the video is you season to taste. You notice that your cookie dough is too wet and you add flour. You're making these little changes you're making these little changes, and you are tweaking your story as you write. And when you spend so much time planning, or you're portioning your ingredients out for the recipe, you're just trusting that all that planning is going to pay off exactly how you want it to. And maybe you don't know how to make those fixes, those changes, when things start going off the rails, when that dough gets a little too wet. How do you fix that? Now you're frantically Googling. Your recipe didn't prepare you for this. That's not the only way to write, of course. Just two different ways. And you can always fall somewhere in the middle. Of course, the perfect balanced writer is going to be able to recognize a framework that fits their story, plan the story appropriately, and be able to let themselves change the story as they're writing to create a better overall experience. That's the dream. Sort of like learning how to fight and actually fighting end up being different. What's spending 20 years being a chef and never made him? Yeah. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Is that a saying that people say? You know, you learn to fight, and then you get punched in the face, and you forget everything. I've been in a couple fights in my day. Hold on. I've been sent to the principal's office a couple times. I know. You wouldn't expect it. But it happens. All right. My brain might stick with clown vampires. Edgar as a clown. I love that. All right. Let's see if there's any other writing advice here, and then I think we're going to wrap up. I think maybe the next biggest piece of writing advice I can give you has to do with finding a place that motivates you to keep writing. Our Discord is awesome at that. Again, if you're not part of the Discord, you're missing out. It's free. You can hop in there. It's a great resource to have. But sometimes we get this idea that writers, you know what, let's do it. Let's be real. Sometimes we get this idea that being a writer is almost like this hermit kind of thing. You know, I'm going to hole myself up in my room, write from midnight to dawn where no one's going to bother me, or I'm going to go off to the coffee shop with my noise canceling headphones, do a bunch of writing. Don't talk to me until I've had my writing coffee. Okay. But there is something very, very valuable to be said for having a place where you can ask questions and get supportive answers. And that's the Discord. Because when someone cares about the thing that you're doing enough to provide you feedback on it, there's like no better feeling in the world. Just having someone who's excited about the things you're excited about. You know, I can say maybe to a friend of mine, hey, I'm writing a book. And they're going to be like, hey, that's really cool. And I'm going to be like, thanks. But if I go to someone else who's a writer and I say, hey, I'm writing a book, they're going to be like, what's it about? Give me the theme. Are you using a plot framework? What are you using? How much planning did you do beforehand? How many words are you getting down a day? Are you in that proto draft? Or you hit the first draft? Have you figured out how you want your story to end? What narrative threads are you setting up? Is there a setup? Is there a payoff? Going once, going twice? Get in the Discord, because that's the kind of excitement that comes from being around a community that wants you to write. And that's what we want, man. Woman. That's what we want. We want you to feel supported enough to come in here and ask questions, to come in here and give answers to other people's questions. The more you give in this Discord and in any sort of writing community, the more you get out of it. If I see someone ask a question in the Discord, and I know that's someone who's been active in the community, I am in that chat as soon as I see that message, because I want to help them as much as they have helped others. It's been really cool to see. I hope it keeps growing. So yeah, that's my last bit of rapid fire writing advice. Find yourself a place where you can talk writing, because no one knows the struggles and the excitement and the feeling like other writers. Like here. Let me tell you what I mean. This is not the shameless plug. When I finished writing my proto draft. I went down to the printing place in my town, and I printed off my proto draft. It says Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs, 40,000 words. And I sat down with it, and first off, holding your story in a printed capacity. All right, there's nothing like it. It's a very prideful moment, for any writer. And then going through and flipping through these pages and seeing my characters in text like any other story I would pick up at the library or the bookstore. That was really cool. Now, I have this video coming out on the editing process this week. You'll see me talk about this proto draft, how I use note cards to do my editing for this. I want you to feel that. The Discord is going to help you get there. Now, imagine how I felt when this came in, right? When it was an actual book with an actual cover and all this. By the way, I just finished the script today for everything about publishing this book. I don't play around as like an expert in this part of writing. There was lots of insecurity about, am I doing this right? But it all pays off when you get to hold it in your hands. So 300 pages feels pretty good. I'm dropping a dumb idea at writing to test the waters. Y'all also enough to make me realize it's a leap of faith. Come leap with us. We're all doing it. Once you get in there and you see the story workshop and the questions and answers, like the writing part of the Discord, is nice. You'll feel right at home. And I love that. Everyone, thank you so much for joining in on this first live stream. I'm going to try to find some of the cool bits of this video to be able to maybe try to make their own clips onto the YouTube channel for anyone who missed it. But also the good thing about this is I think the live stream is just recorded by YouTube, and it's there for anyone who maybe is interested in something like that. Next time, I will be a lot better about doing stream markers and, I don't know, maybe keeping it a little bit more organized. I had a plan going into here about what I wanted to do, but the reality is I just like talking to you guys. So thank you for being here. I'll be trying to do another one maybe on Thursday at a different time for those who couldn't make it on this time slot for Tuesday. And I think that could be kind of nice just to give everyone a chance. So everyone, thank you for joining us. I hope to see you in future live streams. This was a lot of fun. And I hope to see you in the Discord. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.